said, I was a panelist member in 2019, and the fields that are represented in the SH1 panel are economics, finance, and management, where management includes also operational research. So it's actually different disciplines, methodologically and the like. I was also an ERC Advanced Grant between 2015 and 2020. So I've been on both sides. I've been evaluated and I've been an evaluator. So let me first say that it was a great experience to be a panel member. It was very congenial, and I think the panelists worked very hard to have a very fair evaluation. You have seen already a lot of advice on how to write a grant proposal, but maybe I want to emphasize also some of the points of what the panelists are looking for and what it is important to really understand in terms of the process and how to write these parts B1 and B2. So as you know, there are two parts to the evaluation. Step one is the first part where basically you are judged on a very short synopsis of 5 pages of your proposal. So it's a big challenge to summarize in 5 pages, projects that can be very ambitious, where the complexities are such that often you have to push the frontier in a way that is understood only by a few experts, but has to be understandable to people who are non-specialists. So this is where you need to do a lot of work, and where indeed the writing will give to the panel members this wow moment that the previous speaker said. And what is important to understand also is that this step one is the review is done by the panel members themselves. You don't have outside referees at this point. And obviously it's a very important step because this gives you the ability to go to the next step, which is step two, where there you have a much longer proposal, the full proposal, where you can give all the bells and whistles on, the methodology, data set, how to solve complex problems, and how your team will work together. So in 2019, this step two was reviewed also by outside reviewers who are in general specialists in your area. And there is always 1, 2, or 3 panel members who also review the proposal, the full proposal. So you have in general at the end of the process, you have more than 6 or 7 reviewers who have written reports on the proposal, and then the panel members get together and decide how many of the proposals to retain for funding. So some proposals are ranked very highly, but because of funding restrictions, constraints, they are not able to be financed immediately. But that in a second step, which is done by the ERC administration themselves, there may be some residual budget that enables the funding of these proposals. Okay, so there is for some proposal, a step 2+, if you like, where even if you are not funded immediately, you may be funded later on. So what is the panel looking for, and how are they looking for it? Well, there are basically 2 parts in the project, in the proposal: the project itself, the scientific project proposal, and the principal investigator. So you have heard that the principal investigator past history should not matter so much, but I would argue that it matters a little, obviously. Why? So the project, you have heard this high risk, high gain. That means that you think of a project that will give you a wow moment, saying that it is very difficult to do, or maybe it is not so difficult actually, but if it works, there will be a big impact on science or other researchers. So this is a high gain aspect. So a corollary of that is that proposals that are only incremental, even if they push a frontier in difficult directions, but you have the feeling that the increment is what it is, an increment, are not likely to be retained because they won't give you this wow moment. even if, and this is important, even if we know, we all understood among the panel members, that if the researcher succeeds in doing that, he will publish very well, okay, in good journals. But that's not sufficient. Okay, you need really to push the frontier in a way that is not only incremental but also significant. So now there is a little, for me, I mean, for most panel members, there is a very difficult paradox to solve, because you want to fund things that are high risk, high gain, but at the same time, you want some sense of feasibility, right? So you want to sense that the project objectives will be filled potentially if things go well. And I speak of myself, but I think it is the case for other panel members. And this is where the PI history matters, because you cannot distinguish the proposal itself from the ability of the PI to bring the proposal to its fruits. So the history of the PI is more an indicator of the feasibility of pushing this type of high risk, high gain projects to their conclusion. So when we do that, when we evaluate the PI history, we avoid bias in evaluation. Bias may come, let's say, because you are an economist and you evaluate a proposal in management, which has a different methodology, or vice versa. You are in management or political science and you evaluate a proposal in economics, and you know, economists tend to forget some dimensions that may be important for the disciplines. Okay. So, and a thing that is also important to realize is that the standing of the institution in which the PI has done his past work or is planning to do his work does not matter, is not retained, shouldn't be retained as a criterion for feasibility. What will matter, however, is the research environment, the ability for the team to function, the complementarities among the members of the team that is in the proposal, etc., etc. So I think the two parts are linked. You cannot evaluate the feasibility of a proposal without understanding how the track record of the PI and the members of the team. Okay, so, and behind, the future may look very different starting from 2020 than when I was on the panel in 2019, because a lot of things are moving in social sciences, and there is even, you know, some reevaluation on the way we evaluate performance or research. So there is a so-called DORA San Francisco Declaration of Research Assessment that tries to push evaluators to go away from simple journal-based metrics. Like in economics, for instance, we had this view 10 years ago that to have an ERC, you needed at least 3 or 5 top 5 publications. Okay, so the idea is to evaluate research on its own merit. That assumes that you read the previous work and you evaluate really the work on the basis of its scientific content rather than where it ended up in the journal. You need also to capitalize on online publications that are not really recognized in the metrics. And finally, what is becoming very important also is that one important output of research may be the creation of data sets that will be useful, very original, novel, and that will enable the researcher himself, herself, or future researchers to ask novel questions that couldn't be asked because of the absence of this data set. So we are not there. I think we are not there yet, because, you know, we have to rely on some evaluators, but we try to go away from these simple quantitative assessments of past research. So this is to keep in mind when you write your proposal, and the challenges that you have to face and the questions you have to ask yourself very hard. I mean, take an honest view of your proposal is that, why is it path breaking? Okay, the proposal may solve problems that are very difficult to solve, but that will be viewed as incremental because there is a big corpus of literature already, and that the push is not sufficient to give the feeling that we learn significantly from the proposal. The second thing that you ask is why now? Why is that important now? Okay. And the last thing is why you, why me? Why am I the best or somebody who can indeed fulfill this conundrum of feasibility together with this high risk, high gain aspect of the proposal. And my general advice, you have heard that. My general advice also as a previous ERC grantee, give yourself plenty of time to write the proposal. I'm sorry. The second thing is that the B1 should not be cut and paste from B2. You have heard that actually B2 should not include B1, but clearly when you write the proposal, you tend to do the B2 first. And then what you see often on the panel at the first step is that the B1, once you have the full proposal later on, the B1 is a type of summary of the B2. And doing a summary is very difficult because you indeed cannot go into the details of the complexity and how you solve this complexity. And the successful B1 proposals that I've seen actually have been very clear, giving the sense of, we will do that later in the B2, but giving a good intuition of why the proposal may be able to succeed in reaching its objectives. So that's a very important part. As a previous ERC grantee, I can tell you I made a mistake the first time, which was to do exactly this mistake, not to put enough time on the B1. Even I thought the proposal B2 was great, but the B1 didn't convince the panel members that it was great enough, right? So this is very important. These are two different exercises, B2 and B1 in a certain way. To echo that, also, you have to remember that B1, the first step, you are evaluated by all the panel members. So some panel members may be experts in your research area, and they will be able to evaluate your proposal on the merits and see that it is path-breaking. But you have also panel members who are far away from your research area and need to be convinced that your proposal is path-breaking. So your B1 should talk not only to specialists, but also to non-specialists and give this sense of path-breaking. So the writing is actually not trivial. It's much easier to write to specialists than to non-specialists. But this is what really the B1 part is very important to do. And I suggest to have actually, to help that, to have many people, whether they're specialists or non-specialists, read your proposal beforehand to make sure that you convey these 3 points. Why is it path-breaking? Okay. Why now it's even more important given the state of the literature. And the last thing is why you are well equipped to do this endeavor and to be funded. So I will stop here and leave time for questions if there are any. Thank you.